Welcome to Indonesia, a nation of over 17,000 islands, 270 million people, and more than 300 ethnic groups. The country is the fourth most populous and home to the largest Muslim population on Earth. But unlike many majority Muslim nations, have you ever wondered why Indonesia is known for its remarkable religious tolerance, and why the island of Bali seems to have become one of the New Age world spiritual hubs? This is Wisdom Fiber, and in today's video we are going to journey through the history, faith, and philosophy that shaped this beautiful archipelago. Indonesia's story doesn't begin with Islam, far from it. For centuries before Islam arrived, the region was a melting pot of Hinduism, Buddhism, and indigenous beliefs. Kingdoms like Srivijaya, Majapahit, and Sunda dominated the islands and embraced religious pluralism. Majapahit Empire was a big political power in the region between 13th and 16th century. It started in eastern Java, but at one point covered most of the archipelago. It was a center of learning, literature, and spirituality. Majapahit was a Hindu-Buddhist syncretic kingdom. Unlike in India, where these two religious approaches were often separate, here they were blended. Hindu deities like Shiva, Vishnu, and Ganesha were worshipped together with Mahayana Buddhist bodhisattvas. It was strongly influenced by Tantric mysticism, Shiva Buddhist syncretism, and local animist traditions. Priests, scholars, and sages held great influence in court and society. Cosmic order, dharma, harmony, and spiritual discipline for rulers were emphasized. The Sunda kingdom existed in western Java between 7th and 16th century. Sunda was a Hindu kingdom but also incorporated Buddhist and indigenous elements. Hindu-Buddhist teachings were blended with Sunda Vivitan, a native Sundanese belief system rooted in respect for nature, cosmic balance, and ancestors. By the 13th century, Islam began taking root in port cities in Sumatra and West Java through Muslim merchants from Arabia, Persia, India, and China. It spread through trade, not sword, and moved further inland through intermarriage, local rulers, Islamic schools, and cultural expressions in music, literature, and theater. The most critical role in the spread of Islam was held by Sufi missionaries. They used gentle persuasion, spiritual charisma, and adaptation to local beliefs. The Wali Songo, or Nine Saints, were legendary Sufi figures who spread Islam across Java in the 15th and 16th centuries. They used traditional Wayang puppetry, music, poetry, and schools to spread Islamic ideas. Islam adapted to existing beliefs instead of erasing them. Temples were not destroyed, symbols were reinterpreted, and cultural memory was respected. This approach gave birth to the Javanese concept of Kejawen, a spiritual worldview blending Islam, Hinduism, animism, and ancestral worship. It is still practiced by many in Java. Traditional Wayang Kulit, or shadow puppetry, are stories from Hindu epics. These stories were reinterpreted with Islamic moral values. Wali, or Islamic saints, were viewed similarly to Hindu rishis or Buddhist arhats. Even in architecture, early mosques used multi-tiered Meru-style roofs, for example, instead of domes, creating a Hindu-style minarets. During the 16th century, two major events reshaped Java and surrounding regions: decline and fall of Majapahit and Sunda kingdoms. As Islam spread through Java, Hindu and Buddhist elites, priests, artists, nobles, and commoners fled eastward to Bali, an island that had maintained a cultural and religious kinship with Majapahit. Bali absorbed thousands of refugees from Java: royalty, temple architects, dancers, priests, and artisans. These immigrants brought literature, philosophy, court rituals, legal codes, art styles, classical dance, music, and temple designs. As a result, Bali became a living museum of Majapahit culture, with Hindu-Buddhist traditions preserved, adapted, and reinterpreted in new ways. The fall of Majapahit and Sunda was not the end of Hindu-Buddhist Indonesia. It was the beginning of Bali's golden era as the cultural and spiritual heir to that lost world. In Bali, ancient Java lives on in its temples, ceremonies, language, philosophy, and artistic souls. Later, the Dutch began colonizing parts of Indonesia in the 17th century, but Bali remained independent until the early 20th century. Several brutal Dutch invasions eventually led to the fall of Balinese kingdoms. But Dutch Orientalist fascination with Balinese culture led them to preserve Balinese Hindu tradition, even as they suppressed local rulers. Meanwhile, from the early 16th century, Christianity started to take roots in eastern parts of Indonesia. Portuguese traders and missionaries brought Catholic influence in Maluku Islands and East Timor. In Java and Sumatra, Islam was more established, so Catholicism remained a regional minority. After the Dutch ousted the Portuguese and took control of most of Indonesia, they started to promote Protestantism, especially in Maluku Islands, North Sulawesi, parts of Papua, and Borneo. Protestantism was often tied to Dutch language education, literacy, and loyalty to colonial rule. Christianity took root not just through forced conversions, but local choice as well, particularly in areas where indigenous enemies' beliefs still dominated. Finally, when Indonesia declared independence in 1945, its founding fathers faced a dilemma: how to unite a country with such immense diversity. The answer came in the form of Pancasila, 5 foundational principles of the nation. At its heart, belief in one God, but without specifying which God. This allowed room for multiple faiths: Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, all officially recognized. Indonesia's model wasn't about enforcing religious conformity, but embracing spiritual diversity within national unity. Today, over 86% of Indonesians identify as Muslim, but the face of Islam here is deeply shaped by local wisdom. Many follow Nahdlatul Ulama and Muhammadiyah, 2 mass Islamic organizations that promote moderation, education, and tolerance. Nahdlatul Ulama, for example, advocates what it calls Islam Nusantara, a uniquely Indonesian Islam rooted in tradition and peace. But Indonesia hasn't been without its struggles. Tensions occasionally flare and balance is disrupted. They are usually fueled by economic disparity, social competition, and tensions in local politics, like in violent Maluku and Poso conflicts that broke out between Christians and Muslims. Government response was swift. Extremists and radical groups were banned. Interfaith groups, youth coalitions, and women's organizations emerged to rebuild trust. Time again, the Indonesian people, Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, reaffirmed their commitment to unity. As national motto of Indonesia states, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, unity in diversity. This philosophy isn't just printed on coins, it's lived. In schools, in politics, in daily life. Indonesia remains a global example of how Islam can flourish in a pluralistic democratic society. While radical movements do exist, they are fringe and widely rejected by mainstream society. Indonesian Muslims continue to cherish community harmony, often celebrating different religious holidays together. Finally, all this influenced Bali in modern times and explains why Bali became hotspot for New Age teachings as well. From sound healing to ecstatic dance, breathwork to tantra, Bali has become the mecca for modern spiritual seekers. In the early 2000s, Bali became a magnet for yogis, artists, and seekers looking for something more than modern life offered. Then came Eat, Pray, Love, and the wave turned into a flood. Today, Ubud and Canggu are home to hundreds of wellness retreats, yoga schools, healing centers, and tantra workshops. Here, Western self-help meets Eastern mysticism, with a Balinese backdrop. Bali's spiritual energy isn't a trend, it's ancient. The island preserved a unique form of Hinduism fused with animism and Buddhism, long after the rest of Indonesia became predominantly Muslim. Here, the sacred isn't separated from daily life. It is daily life. Every house has a temple. Every offering has meaning. The Balinese live in harmony with the unseen world, perfect soil for spiritual seekers. and religiously tolerant local Balinese and Indonesians provide opportunities for blending of different spiritual doctrines. In a world where religion often divides, Indonesia shows us a different path, one where faith doesn't need to be enforced with fear but lived with respect. Its history, rooted in peaceful exchange and cultural blending, gave birth to a model of Islam that's inclusive and adaptive. Syncretism of various religious practices shows us that it is possible to combine fundamental religious teachings with modern and tolerant living. Its politics, anchored in secular values and Pancasila, protect religious minorities, and its people, grounded in tradition and open to the world, continue to lead by example. If you found this story inspiring, share it with someone who needs to see a different face of Islam, other religions, and Southeast Asia. Like, subscribe, and feel free to comment your thoughts below. Let's keep open discussions, learning from the stories that unite us and not divide us.